It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do, you do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, I'm on the road in Virginia. We welcome you to our Thursday podcast as we head towards a great sports weekend. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host broadcasting from left field with his opinions, the venerable John Riley, and our podcast dog sniffer. We're the only ones allowed to have a podcast pet. We're here for the next hour plus. We're going to be talking sports, going a lot of different directions, absolute ton of different things that we're going to discuss. And then when we're done, you're going to take over the podcast. We invite you to join us with our Fans Forum segment. This podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego, regardless of what the project is, at home, at work, maybe on the back patio, up by the swimming pool. You got projects, they got materials. You want ideas, they can be your best friend and your consultant. DIXIELINE Lumber, go to DIXIELINE.com for details. John Riley, boy, what a week we've had. We're going a lot of different directions. We're talking a ton of sports today. Going to add some unique and different topics on the table. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Tell us a little bit about Virginia. How is your travels going?
It's rainy, it's cold, and I'm about to come home. But otherwise, it's really, really been good. Kind of relit some friendships with longtime NFL friends. We'll talk about that at the end of the podcast. But this is just a really different environment right now because it's spring in Virginia. And right now it was 30 degrees this morning, and it's raining, and it's probably about 40 degrees. It's really raw outside, but the sun is going to shine tomorrow. Back there, you got baseball to talk about, and just around the corner, we got the NFL draft and a whole bunch of other things to talk about. You ready to start?
You are the hardest working man in sports journalism. Yeah, I'm ready to start. Are you?
Hit the button. Let's go. Topic 1.
Topic 1 on the list. Let's go to the Masters. Getting started here.
Yeah, the race for the green jacket has begun just south of here at Augusta, Georgia. This is a different Masters. It's a different Masters because of all the hurricane damage at Augusta National Golf Course. Took a lot of trees down. It has a very different look to it. It's a different Masters because it's a really wide open golf tournament this year around. It's a different Masters because there still has been no resolution to the PGA-LIV civil war that's going on. We're going to talk about that in just a second. And it's a Masters in which it's the 89th race for the green jacket, 95 players on the leaderboard, but there's only 2 names that anybody's talking about. Scottie Scheffler, 9 wins last year, FedEx champion, got hurt at Christmas time, hand surgery, very slow out of the gate. Right now, no wins for Scottie Scheffler, but he's knocking at the door. He's in second place as they get to the end of the first round here at Augusta. Had a 40-foot birdie putt today along the way. Everybody expecting Scheffler to be the man to beat before we get to the finish line. Second guy is Rory McIlroy. He has really become the fans' favorite. You know, of all the things he's accomplished, and he's won a ton of tournaments, and he's very public, and he's very vocal, and he's from Ireland, and he's very proud of the PGA Tour. He's never won a green jacket. They think his game has now kind of come back together. A bit of an elbow problem a week and a half ago, but he's playing. He was just a couple strokes back of the leaders late in the first round. Other names, once upon a time, I think everybody felt that Jordan Spieth had arrived and this was the next superstar. He's lost his putter, injury after injury. He's just not the same player. Xander Schauffele, who we have followed extensively on our podcast, you know, he won 2 Grand Slams a year ago. He was down with fractured ribs, and he has really struggled to find his game since coming back. Next star might be Colin Morikawa, looking for a breakthrough. He's got to win a major, I think, to reach that status. And then there's the guys who were here, who left, who went abroad for the payday, and have kind of disappeared. Jon Rahm has won only 2 events in 18 tournaments he's played since he defected and went to LIV. Brooks Koepka, not playing very well at all, taking a lot of heat for his criticism that LIV has not become what they promised it would become. they've fallen off the radar. Dustin Johnson, zero success, way back of the pack today. Bryson DeChambeau, exact same set of circumstances. How about this, John? In the first round, late in the first round, of course, they're still out on the course here at Augusta. Late in the first round, everybody who went to the LIV was a combined 10 over par in the first round at the Masters Golf Tournament. So this thing is wide open, though I think emotionally everybody is following what Scottie Scheffler is going to do, and obviously what they hope Rory McIlroy can do, which is get the green jacket for the first time ever. John, your response?
I'm looking forward to this. I think there's going to be a number of Aztecs in this. Of course, Xander Schauffele, but I'm reading about this Justin Hastings kid who is in the Masters. He qualified. I guess he grew up in a Caribbean island. Mark Ziegler has been tweeting about him. I mean, I think there's going to be some local stories, and this is it's interesting how it's opening up opportunity for some young guys now.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. Another Aztec that you might pay attention to, because he's done well on certain rounds this year, early stages of the schedule. JJ Spawn, another San Diego State golfer. But the Masters, the whole spotlight, I almost dare you to name anybody that would be atop the leaderboard by the time I get to the final round on Sunday, not name Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. That's topic one. Now, there's a second topic we're going to talk about on golf. John, go ahead. What's the question here?
The PGA rejects the LIV offer. Tell us more.
This story just leaked out early this week. There have been negotiations going on almost nonstop for the last 6 months. No progress at all. The golfers on both sides are really frustrated. Some of them are really fed up. The Saudi Public Investment Fund, which is negotiating to become partners with the PGA Tour, at the end of last week, made a $1.5 billion cash offer to become an equity partner with the PGA, but they demanded the right to operate the tournaments in Europe and around the globe with their own type of format, the team play format. The PGA flat out rejected it. The PGA's opinion, the initial structure of what they had agreed upon early on, was that the PGA would run all the tournaments in terms of the format, stroke play, medal play, etc. We weren't going to go to team play that LIV was trying to pitch. We weren't going to do anything different to, quote, change the game. LIV would market it globally, would take part in some unique events, maybe that would include the LPGA, but they would not change 4 rounds. They would not change the field. You'd have to play to make a cut, etc. LIV at the last minute, after making the $1.5 billion offer, said, we want to change it. We got to play our rules. PGA also responded, your guys just can't show up and play here when they want to play here. There are a number of tournaments they are required to play, and your guys have to play the same number of tournaments that the guys who stayed behind here in the States are playing. LIV is against that. They want to be able to have their guys go play some other exhibitions, if you will. And still unresolved player penalties. And the PGA players are almost to a man standing up and saying, John, these guys violated their tour card when they jumped. And we're not going to let them come back without some form of payment, aka penalty. This thing seems to almost be going in the wrong direction. So the Saudis made a $1.5 billion offer. I was told it was made last Friday. I was told it was rejected on Monday. This thing is farther away from being settled than it is closer to being settled, even though obviously some LIV guys who've qualified for the Masters are playing at Augusta this weekend. Ugly story. I mean, TV ratings just continue to tank. Nobody's watching LIV. PGA ratings have had a bit of a bump because some of the younger guys are starting to draw attention, but it's not like it used to be. And all the big names that have gone abroad disappeared off the radar screen. John, your response?
Okay, this is dumb. What they're doing is dumb. I, as a golf fan, I don't have a problem with them playing some team play in Europe and Asia and mixing it up. Gives me a little variety of what to watch. And these players should have the liberty to go play in some exhibitions. I think the PGA is in grudge mode here, and they're just sticking their heels in the sand, and they're doing it at their own expense. They're harming their own product. This seems like a very reasonable compromise. Plus, they'd be getting $1.5 billion. I mean, what's the problem here?
Well, I think one of the big problems is if they're mandating Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy have to play 19 stops on the PGA Tour, 19 different tournaments, and then of course you got the Grand Slam events, etc. They want these players on this tour to make a commitment to play at San Diego, to play at Torrey Pines, to go play at Firestone, go play Greensboro. They don't want to just show up in the big money events, take the money, and then run back to Saudi Arabia or Europe, where these guys are playing right now. That's why they're mandating that everybody's going to operate under the same rules. You can't pick and choose where you're playing. That's a big issue. The other thing is, I have not met a golf fan, and I kind of cross paths with people for all different interests, John. I've not met a golf fan who has watched LIV very much or thinks team play carries any merit. The reality is we grew up in the era of 4 rounds, and we grew up in the era of 18 holes per day, and there's a cut after Friday, and they don't want to see anything radically different. And nobody can identify with team play whatsoever because it doesn't carry any legacy to it. I don't response.
I don't have a problem with team play. I think it's fine. I mean, granted, I do appreciate and I prefer the medal play as the primary, but if they mix in some team play, that's not a problem. And by the way, do any other sports like, let's say, tennis or NASCAR or F1, do they mandate that their athletes attend all of the medium and small tournaments too?
Well, be able to get qualified in points, you got to play in a whole bunch of tournaments. You got to run a whole bunch of NASCAR races to be in the championship at the end of the year. So yeah, you got to compete to be able to rack up points. It's just not a payday and show up. So that's the other problem. The LIV, these guys get a payday. Whether they finish first or they finish 35th, they get a big payday. And there is no cut in the LIV. PGA wants to make this thing fiercely competitive. They don't want to go against the grain of the way golf has been established, dating back to Byron Nelson and Bobby Jones back in the day. And you want to change it? Come on, Riley.
They're so conservative. It's just too conservative.
I forgot you're doing the show from left field. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, granted, that was one of the things. I mean, imagine if you're a professional golfer and you live, I don't know, let's say you live in North Carolina and you come out to San Diego to play at Torrey Pines and you don't make the cut. I don't think you make any money. And I think it's reasonable for these guys to pursue financial interests, so I don't have a problem with them picking and choosing which tournament to go to. I think this PGA guys are just stuck in like an old 1950s mindset.
Okay, I'm just going to pose this for people who like golf, love golf, play golf, watch golf. Fans Forum chat box is open. Just go to the bottom of the screen, give us an opinion. Are you going to stand with him in left field and say, let's just change everything about golf? Or are you standing with me as the co-host of this podcast that the PGA is correct? This thing has worked for a long, long time, and we're not going to change what made Jack Nicklaus and Arnie Palmer great just so we can have Saudi Arabian money. So you can cast your opinion right now. Fans Forum chat box. You siding with Hacksaw in studio in Virginia or John broadcasting from left field. Okay, we go from that. John, let's talk a little baseball.
Baseball, yeah. The Padres just wrapped up a series in Sacramento.
Good headline. First place, but hurting. Luckily, not major injuries from what we can gather. Let's talk about Jackson Merrill's got a bit of a hamstring, so they've shut him down for 15 days on the disabled list. Homestand starts with the Colorado Rockies, and Tatis, Cronenworth, probably both going to be in the lineup. Hopefully, the shoulder issue with El Nino is not real significant. Cronenworth did not think the twinge in the rib cage was a big problem. The Padres are obviously getting some pretty significant play from some of those super utility guys. Gavin Sheets has really had himself a first nice 3-4 weeks of the baseball season. And obviously Machado is hitting. So we'll see what the lineup looks like over the course of the weekend. How about this bullpen? How about this array of Suarez along with Estrada, Morion, Peralta, Jason Adam? I went back and dug through some statistics this morning, John. That group, that 5-man bullpen brigade, has a combined ERA of 0.53 as of this hour as they get ready to open play on the weekend against the Rockies. Think about that. 34 innings. Those 5 guys have given up 2 runs, only 10 hits, 37 strikeouts in 34 innings, and the enemy is hitting 154 against the bullpen brigade. That's pretty impressive. Now, in terms of concerns, we're 3 weeks in. Pitch count to the starting guys in the rotation, really high. Dylan Cease, 7.98 ERA. Michael King, 4.05 ERA. Nick Pivetta, 1 good outing, 1 really bad outing. Kyle Hart's ERA, 11.12. Each of those guys, to me, way too high pitch counts in the first couple of starts to the season. Now, the Padres, a lot of people fail to realize this. The Padres have the best record in baseball heading to the series with Colorado. They're 10-4 out of the gate. Now, with me, there's always a but. Every time there's a conversation about this, that, and the other, there's always a but that I want you to consider. Aren't we lucky, John? The Friars have played the no-talent Sacramento A's, the hitless wonders, the Cleveland Guardians, the battered Atlanta Braves, who have a better team on the DL than they have on the field right now, and here comes last place Colorado. So, but 10-4 has to have a bit of an asterisk because you haven't played anybody yet. But you're going to play these people. This whole thing evens itself out. So, John, what do you like? What are you concerned about Padre baseball?
Well, first of all, it's 10-3. Okay, it's better than 10-4. Okay. And yeah, the schedule is a little bit light here in April. I was looking at it month by month, and they don't play the Dodgers till June, and there's a lot tougher teams down the road. So take advantage of this, rack up the wins. It's all good. But I've got to be worried about Tatis and that shoulder, because when he swung that back, he torqued his shoulder. I'm wondering if he damaged it. That's the one I'm worried about. Merrill and Cronenworth, I'm okay with that. They're going to work that out. But yeah, the pitching's been fantastic. Jason Adam, that guy is a find. Good on Preller for making that deal to get him.
How about those 5 guys in the bullpen? Collective ERA is 0.53. Wow. I don't know what they're going to do to get the pitch counts down from those front 3 guys in the starting rotation. We'll just have to see where that goes. So that's all things Padres baseball. The next team we're talking about, Evil Empire. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, the Dodgers. Injuries and bad defense.
They're the ones that are 10-4. That's kind of surprising. They're not playing like a World Series championship team. Dave Roberts kind of got upset in the clubhouse after the games early this week. He says, this is not Dodger baseball. Now, granted, they got some injury issues too, but their defense has really been poor. Their infield defense has been poor. What's going on in center field with Andrew Padres is just really amazing. He's just played really poor defensively. So they're going to have to tighten the screws there. But they went through some defensive lapses very early last season. I flashback, Max Muncy played really miserable defense at third base and at first base early in the season, but the Dodgers obviously got that thing rolling. Bad defense is one thing. A little bit concerned about the Blake Snell situation. On the disabled list, he's got pain in his shoulder. They're calling it shoulder fatigue, shoulder inflammation. I was told the MRI, they sent him from the road trip back home to Los Angeles. I was told they did an MRI. It did not show any damage, but it did show inflammation. So they're going to have to shut him down for just a little bit of time. But he continues to run up a high pitch count. That's him. That's who he is. He goes 5 innings or 4 innings, and he's throwing 96 pitches. Nothing has changed at all. I don't care about the rhetoric. I just need to focus and get my mechanics down. No, you're a 9-year veteran. This should be a locked-in situation, but it's not. The Dodgers just went 2-4 on a road trip, so that's not very good. They get a suddenly surprising Cubs team at Dodger Stadium starting the weekend series on Friday. Dodgers now have 12 pitchers on the disabled list, and of course they just brought up the Landon Knack from AAA Oklahoma City. They brought up Justin Robleski. He had one really rocky start, but he didn't get any help on defense. So sent him back to Oklahoma City. So, the Dodgers are just kind of treading water. They continue to hit the baseball really well. But I don't know, you alarmed about the Snell situation? Just nothing changes with this guy. Now he's got this big payday coming from L.A. rather than San Francisco or prior to that San Diego. And the first half of his season just continued to be miserable baseball.
Yeah, it's concerning, but it is a pattern. So, it's still early. He'll be fine down the road. Dodgers, we don't need to worry about them. But I will say this, talking about bad defense, that Andy Pages out in center field has made a number of blunders out there, tracking fly balls, over his shoulder. What's the deal with center field? Because remember, Tommy Edman was playing there and did great. And then there's James Outman, who's playing down in Oklahoma City. I mean, who is the center fielder of the future for the Dodgers?
That's a good question. Outman was the one that came through the farm system very fast, had one good late season splurge maybe a year and a half ago. Last year was lost, went back to AAA, hit well at the last half of the season at Oklahoma City. I thought he might win his way back onto the roster, but he and Pages went head-to-head, and Pages beat him. But Pages is playing center field like there's landmines out there. I mean, his ability or inability to track fly balls is really hard to believe for somebody who's got these credentials as a pretty good prospect. So they got to solve that. But, they went through this mess last year. And, they got Miguel Rojas is playing a little bit at second base, a little bit at third base, and he's been kicking balls around, which is kind of weird because that's a former Gold Glove guy. So it's just, at this point, this is not Dodger baseball as we knew Dodger baseball to be, notably at the end of last season. Okay, let's go to the third team.
I was going to say, how about Teoscar Hernandez? That guy's knocking the ball around as well. But yeah, let's keep moving. Let's go down here, talk a little Angels. Some good, some bad.
Interesting start. Angels are on a long road trip. They went crazy today in Tampa Bay. Speaking of playing in a minor league stadium like the Sacramento A's did, Angels destroyed Tampa Bay today on a Thursday afternoon game, 11-1. Angels hit 4 home runs in 1 inning at Steinbrenner Stadium at Legends Field. Their young outfielders are hitting the ball really well. They got some guys hurt. Joe Adell hit 2 home runs in 1 inning today. Angels had an 8-run fifth. Odell led off with a bomb, finished with a bomb in that inning. Mike Trout's hitting home runs, not hitting for average. Soler's not hitting for average yet. Taylor Ward was not hitting for average, but he popped a couple of bombs today down in Tampa. As of the start of this Thursday game in Tampa, Angels had 7 guys batting below 222, which is kind of strange. But they're getting some decent pitching. Kyle Hendrick, who I've talked about extensively, is I thought, boy, if this guy could be what he used to be with the Cubs, this would help the Halos a lot. Kyle Hendrick's got an ERA of 1.40. I will say this, that Yusei Kikuchi, who came from Toronto and Houston, he's pitched with a lot of bad luck. His ERA is a little bit high, but he's pitched a lot of innings, and he's had a couple of bad innings in there. So far, the bullpen, led by Ben Joyce and Kenley Jansen, looks pretty good. Halos are off to a good start. That's kind of hard to believe. John, I think they're 8-4. Could you have ever imagined the Angels would be 8-4 out of the gate? And they've been doing a chunk of this on the road. So I guess we just have to hold our breath. Trout was hitting 171, though he's popped some home runs. Soler's hitting 222. Those guys are going to hit. We'll see if the pitching can hold up. But today was kind of a unique situation, man. Those balls were flying out of Legends Field like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I'm curious to see at Legends Field what the ballpark conditions are going to be when in the summertime, because we know it's going to be hot. But is the ball going to travel more in the heat, or is it going to be too much humidity that's going to hold the ball in?
I did some digging. Down the foul lines, it's 315 feet down the foul lines. So if you pull it down the foul lines, it's likely going yard. So maybe that had something to do with all these home runs that were hitting that ball game today. So you're a baseball fan, Padres, Dodgers, Angels, feel free to jump on board. Fans Forum chat box is open. Like to hear what you've got to say. Got some other baseball notes. It's been a bad week for injuries, John.
Yeah, let's look at the MLB notebook. Start with the Mariners.
Let's start with Seattle. This is terrible. I don't know if you saw the video of the catch. Victor Robles, a promising prospect, once upon a time with Washington, had a bounce-back season. Mariners made a spectacular catch over the weekend, but he dislocated his shoulder, and it was a really serious injury. Run into a fence. He's going to be out 4 months. That's a big blow because Mariners, I don't think, have enough bats to put around Julio Rodriguez. The news in Atlanta just keeps getting worse. They did the arthroscopic surgery on Reynaldo Lopez, their number 2 starting pitcher. Scar tissue going to be gone minimum 3 months. Big setback for Atlanta. They're out shopping. They're looking to try to make trades. Spencer Strider, we think, is going to be back this coming week, but you never know, how that surgery's affected him. He seems to be ahead of the schedule a little bit. Boston Red Sox is a really sad story. The Red Sox and the Astros, the tragedy in Santo Domingo, the collapse of that roof at that Jet Set nightclub. There's like 198 people, I believe, have been killed. There's more than 205 been injured. Octavio Dotel, former major league pitcher with the Houston Astros, a number of clubs, died in that incident. The sister of Nelson Cruz, legendary slugger, died in that roof collapse. And now we find out today that Pedro Martinez has family members that have gone missing that were at that club, have not been found nor accounted for yet. So just a terrible tragedy impacting the Red Sox and the Houston Astros. And the last story involves the Pirates. And we talked extensively about all the problems in Pittsburgh with ownership, payroll, bad baseball, etc. And then on Monday, we talked about the podcast where they pulled down this big design on the right field wall that saluted number 21, Roberto Clemente, and replaced it with an advertisement for a beer company. Now we find out that ownership of the Pirates in the offseason ripped up the front of PNC Park to do renovations. And at the front of PNC Park, John, you've heard of these things. As they were building the park a decade ago, they sold commemorative bricks to longtime Pirate fans. You made a deposit. You could put your name on the brick or a message on the brick about your love for Pirate baseball, your history. And they sold thousands. I think it was 10,000 bricks in all. Made a significant amount of money. Anyhow, those bricks were ripped up in the offseason and replaced by pavement. Didn't tell anybody. Fans got to PNC Park for the home opener against the Yankees last weekend and looked at the front end, the main entrance, the home plate entrance at PNC, and said, where are the commemorative bricks that we bought for my family? My dad was a Pirates fan in the 1960s, the Mazeroski home run years and World Series, and, we are family with Willie Stargell. They were furious. So one of the TV stations did an investigative report, and all the bricks were ripped up and sent into dumpsters and were sent to a recycling plant. Pirates just taken so much unbelievable heat locally. Anyhow, they've reclaimed the bricks. They're going to reestablish a different part of PNC Park to create a fans memorial for all the people that bought those bricks when PNC was first being built. It's a beautiful, beautiful stadium. But how, John, at the end of the day, how tone deaf, how stupid are the owners of the Pittsburgh Pirates? It's like every business decision they make seems to be negative. Just absolutely stunning. So, John, you want to talk about the baseball notebook? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. That is dumb. And they have those bricks at Petco. And imagine, you spend money on it. You want to be, it's not a gravestone, but it's sort of kind of in that neck of the woods where you're commemorating. You want to be remembered, your family remembered, connection with the team gets pulled up. Pittsburgh's made so many bonehead decisions. The tragedy in the Dominican Republic is an interesting story because they were talking about it in the game, was it yesterday's game? And then Luis Ariz had written on his Padre hat, I think it was Nelly Cruz, which is Nelson Cruz's sister.
Right.
It's sort of a rip, sort of a message on his cap. And I was thinking, hey, that's really cool that Luis was doing that. But isn't he going to get fined by MLB? Aren't they really uptight about like uniform rules?
Yeah, they really are. Now, whether that issue a fine to Luis Ariz for doing that, considering what the message says, but all the professional sports have rules that you can't wear headbands or put certain things on your jersey or on towels or on your shoes, etc., without league approval. I don't think that they would do anything to Ariz just because of the circumstances and what he did. But normally they kind of frown upon that. Okay, John, we get to halftime. Our Thursday podcast is off and rolling. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. I bought a house here in 1987, and obviously, great house, nice plot of property, but it was an older house. And eventually you need to replace things. And I've renovated and replaced everything in my house, including doors and windows. And that's how I got introduced to DIXIELINE lumber. And John, it's made an unbelievable difference in terms of keeping the house cool in the summer and keeping the heat in these cold, chilly winters that we do have in San Diego. That's how I got introduced to DIXIELINE. How did you find these people?
Well, I originally found out about it when I was a student at UCSD, because it was like the local hardware store that was kind of near there on Miramar Road. But check this video out. The custom homes that they do for DIXIELINE lumber are incredible, and work with a lot of architects. And you can see here a window installation and a stairwell installation into this custom home. So the DIXIELINE people kind of help work with the contractor, get all of the material, building materials, the lumber, all there ready to go on stage so they can build out these homes. So custom homes like this, I mean, granted, this caters to the high end of the community, but DIXIELINE is perfect for those folks that are pursuing that kind of a house.
The best thing I can recommend to everybody who watches us on live stream, you might not be thinking of a project right now, but there's probably a project coming in your home soon. Just go to the website, DIXIELINE.com. Just see all the things they have to offer, whether it's buying a socket wrench or actually making plans to paint, renovate, doors, windows. These are the people to do business with. DIXIELINE Lumber, 9 locations to serve you. We are at halftime. Our podcast, I'm on the road in Virginia. John is broadcasting in the sunshine from left field with his opinions today. John, when we're done with topics on the table, because we do sports talk the way it should be done, we touch all the hot topics, sports and sometimes politics and sports. But when we're done, we open it up to fans forum, the chat box. Just explain to all the people on live stream how the fans forum chat box works.
Yeah, so this is your chance to get involved, and people are already piling in, Lee. So if you have a question or comment in the world of sports or any hot take on what Hacksaw has said in the past, type in your comment in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved. I see here Joel and Jason and Lenny and Freddie and Hugh and Gary and Sam the Tool Man, who's got a few choice words for you, Hacksaw. Callan and Matthew and Joel, you're all in there. Let's pile in. We'll take more of you. We're always looking for first-timers.
Yeah, John screaming from left field. Pile in, pile on. Okay, fans forum chat box will be coming up. When I get back into town, we obviously will be back writing on our website. If you've never sampled my website, it's pretty amazing. LeeHacksawHamilton.com. There's a orange box on the homepage. Fill out that orange box. Join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Want you to join my Twitter All-Star team on X. Just go to my handle at Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. That way you'll get alerts every time I put something up on Twitter, and I do that quite often. And of course, we want you to share. Tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30. Want you to subscribe. When you subscribe on the YouTube channel, we put a lot of stuff up on that YouTube channel during the course of the week. When we do that, because you subscribe, you'll get in the alert that there's something new. When you get a chance, go check it out. So we're on all the social media platforms. I'm glad to have you on board. We're in our 3rd year of doing this. Can't believe the following that we have kind of built. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they disagree, but that's okay because we're here to talk about it. All right, John, let's move on. We're a week plus away from something really big in the offseason, pro football draft.
Yeah, the draft. Agree or disagree? Here we go.
Let's talk about news and notes around the National Football League. Draft is coming up that final week of April. So we're 2 weeks out. Nobody at this point seems to have an idea really what's going to happen with the number 1 pick. The left hand says Tennessee desperately needs a quarterback. The right hand says, yeah, but Tennessee drafted Will Levis and gave him a chunk of money, and Tennessee needs help a lot of other places as they continue the rebuild. What's Tennessee going to do? Well, Tennessee has held private workouts for Cam Ward, the Miami Hurricane quarterback, have met with him twice. But Tennessee has also engaged Cleveland and the New York Giants, drafting 2 and 3, to see if they're interested in trading up to get Cam Ward. If that were to happen, Tennessee lets them get the quarterback. Tennessee would drop to either 2 or 3, and they'd get one of the marquee defensive players on the draft board, plus additional picks. So that's the Tennessee storyline. We're not sure which is fact, which is fiction. But the fact that they've had 2 meetings with Cam Ward and then the extended private workout at Miami of Florida, that kind of leads me to believe they're looking at him. Cleveland is sitting there at number 2. They've got a great defense. They could add to that defense if they draft Abdul Carter, the defensive end from Penn State. They could add to that defense if they took the defensive back from Colorado, Travis Hunter. They could also change everything if they were bold enough to jump up and to make a trade to go get Cam Ward. What's really intriguing, though, is this week, Cleveland has snuck in Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe and just met with Louisville's quarterback Tyler Shuck. Both those guys are probably second or third round choices. Might the Browns draft defense first and go get one of those quarterbacks in the second or third round? The Giants are at number 3. If the Giants don't trade up, then the Giants are sitting there and probably take defense because they did commit a lot of money to Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, short-term veteran rentals. The Raiders are the ones that are in kind of a unique position. Ashton Genty is there this week, might have been today, visiting with the Raiders, the Boise State star running back. What a great fit he would be. However, Raiders do need a quarterback for the future, even though they got Geno Smith signed. They are talking and have brought in Jackson Dart of Ole Miss for a workout. Looking at Quinn Ewers from Texas, although I get spotty reports as to whether or not he's anywhere near being a high draft pick. And then there's the whole Shedeur Sanders story. And think about this. Sanders, just because of the way he's acted and the fact that there seem to be some glitches in his physical abilities, that Shedeur Sanders may be dropping on the board, and the Raiders might have a decision to make. If things fall the way it's rumored, they either draft Genty at 6 or Shedeur Sanders, quarterback of the future, at number 6. And the other story is the Rams. And the Rams are looking for a quarterback of the future, and the Rams are bringing in Jalen Milroe from Alabama. Now, Milroe had a tremendous sophomore season, very strong first 2/3 of his junior season, and fell apart at the end of last year. He's a great athlete, but he's highly erratic. I emailed with a scout today who's of the opinion that this kid could be a Lamar Jackson guy. Not right now, but we're talking about athletic components that could make him a Lamar Jackson player. So, John, those are hot bullet points a couple weeks out from the draft. Everybody's trying to theorize what's fact, what's fiction, what's a smokescreen, what's a lie as it relates to the top of the draft board and the quarterbacks. Your response?
Well, 2 quarterbacks I'm interested in your thoughts on. Number 1 is Will Levis toast? Is he gone? Are they walking away from him? Does he have a future in the NFL? And by the way, in Cleveland, I saw quotes from Deshaun Watson said that he's coming back and he's going to be better than he ever was. And I don't know if we really can believe him.
Well, in terms of the situation in Tennessee, Will Levis was, I think it was a second-round draft pick, had to play because of injuries. He played pretty well his rookie season. Second year, he was expected to take a next jump up, and instead he regressed. Turnovers, he wound up getting benched. So Tennessee, there's some flaws in his abilities, and he have a good situation around him. They're not going to cut him because of obviously what they signed him for. But he's going to have to earn his stripes here to play, which makes now the whole Tennessee situation. They've spent so much time on Cam Ward. They're bringing Cam Ward in to compete and eventually take the job away from Will Levis, or do they draft defense and just say Levis is still our guy? We still have belief. We just got to put better people around Levis. And the Deshaun Watson situation, I mean, that's all great rhetoric that I'm fueled now by the setback I've had. Well, you've had so many setbacks. Cleveland's paralyzed with the cap. 2025 will be a washout season. He won't play because of the Achilles injury. They'd have 1 year left on the contract. Some people theorize they're not even going to keep him. They'll release him after this coming season. After he does the rehab, they take whatever cap hit they're going to take. You know, at the end of the day, his game has regressed so far, and he's had so many injuries. And there's a whole personal baggage thing that he's dragging with him that just he can't get away from. So I don't think that Cleveland can really count on him because he is not the quarterback he was in Houston. And now all these other negative things have kind of swirled around him. That answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens here. I just love the jockeying of positions, the trades, and And a lot of times, when Goodell gets up there at the podium at the NFL draft, they'll announce them online, on the fly. So we'll find out. But maybe, this quarterback class isn't as good as previous classes. What do you think?
No, you're correct. I mean, as we sit here right now, 2 weeks out, Cam Ward looks like really the only lock, and there's a whole bunch of mystery guys. Those mystery guys who are undersized. There are mystery guys that are great athletes but are not polished products yet. There are mystery guys coming off injuries, mystery guys that ran in strange systems. Does that acclimate them to be ready to be in the NFL? So it's just not the quarterback class that some of the classes we've seen in the past. Okay, if you're an NFL football fan, feel free, dive in, jump on that loose football. You got an opinion? Fans Forum chat box is open. We're going from that to hoops. Here's a great question. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about like hoops here. Who do we fear here in the playoffs?
Next week is the final week of the NBA schedule, right? And I understand the defending champion Boston Celtics and how great they are. But look at the Western Conference and look how many really great teams are out there. That's really impressive. Oklahoma City and the young Houston franchise. But then you look at where the Lakers are. Look at what the Clippers have become. Look at what else is out there in the West. So we're going to talk storylines around the NBA. Who do you fear the most? The Lakers are sitting there at 49-31 as we enter the weekend. They won 8 of their last 14 games. When they're on, they're so dangerous. They're impossible to stop. I mean, when they're on with Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves, they're absolutely unstoppable. Now, defensively, there are some nights where they don't show up and they don't play. And there are some nights where Luka might go 6 for 16 shooting the basketball. But right now, they look just really, really dangerous. So Lakers are playing really well. Clippers have now won 16 of their last 19. Nobody's paying attention except maybe me. 16 of 19. Kawhi Leonard is back playing like Kawhi Leonard has played in the past. I wasn't sure he could be the old Kawhi Leonard. They've tried to limit his minutes. Now he's playing a lot more. He's played back-to-back for the first time this season. He's starting to play 35 to 38, and in some instances 41 minutes a night. But you look at Clipper basketball right now, they are 5-6 deep in terms of scoring firepower. They got Kawhi, they got Norman Powell, they got James Harden, they got Bogdanovich, three-point shooter. They got the guy off the bench, Nick Batum, and that center has really become a star in the league, and nobody is talking at all about Ivica Zubac. He had back-to-back games, John, of 24 points and 20 rebounds, and then a triple-double last night, 20 points, 11 boards, 10 assists.
Wow.
That's a really complete team that Tyronn Lue has, and it's healthy for the first time all season long. So those, to me, those guys are really dangerous, Lakers, Clippers. The other storyline in the NBA has got to do with the coaching crisis. We saw another head coach whose team's going to the playoffs with a pretty good record get fired this week. Just happened yesterday. Talking about the Denver Nuggets hitting the eject button on Mike Malone, the coach, and the general manager, Calvin Booth. They blew him out despite a 47-32 record. Malone's got 471 career wins. They were an NBA champion just 2 years ago. Problem? GM and coach weren't communicating and talking. Problem? Players stopped listening to the coach. Problem? They weren't playing any bleeping defense at all. And they were leaning on the joker to do everything Jokic. And then to complicate it, Booth made a lot of mistakes in player personnel acquisitions. And here's an intangible thing. They let go a great chemistry guard in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope this past offseason. Russell Westbrook had come on board, played well in the spurt. Westbrook's not playing well right now, and Westbrook has become a distraction. Westbrook, to me, almost appears to be a coach killer, and he might be one of the ones responsible for the demise of everything in Denver. A terrible, terrible team disconnect between coach, general manager, coach, players, and they fire Mike Malone, which is just a staggering, stunning story. The other one is in Phoenix. Highest payroll in the NBA. All those star players, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Brad Beal, They're going to win a championship. They're out of the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs. They've lost 8 games in a row, and they're stuck with all these contracts, and they got this toxic situation that currently exists. So it's really a bad look for the NBA. A week ago, Memphis, which had 44 wins, fired its coach, Taylor Jenkins. Early in the season, Mike Brown, who had won 48 and 46 games in 2 years in Sacramento and fixed that franchise, he got fired too. I mean, it's really bad, the environment, the coaching environment. So you tell me, is it coaches? Is it the players? Is it on the stupidity of some of these non-basketball owners? What chaos in pro basketball. So, John, who do you fear the most, Lakers or Clippers? And you're going to apply for a coaching job out there in left field?
Well, a lot of this is related to the degrading of the product in the regular season, where they don't play a lot of defense and guys are, it's ISO, they're not moving the ball around as much. And so this just to me is indicative of the deeper problem in the NBA. But isn't it weird, though, how the Western Conference is so much better than the East, and it's been that way for decades?
Well, you've got an awful lot of good athletes in Oklahoma City and Houston. That's a byproduct of them having high draft picks and having had their own set of bad seasons. But you've also got driven ownership out here. The Lakers and owners, Lakers and Clippers owners are really driven to excel. Obviously, the Lakers have all those banners. The Clippers are still looking for a banner to hang with an owner that's really committed. This is the third time in Steve Ballmer's ownership of the Clippers that they've loaded this roster that looks like it's pretty dangerous. Last 2 times it happened, injuries just sidetracked and derailed everything the Clippers were attempting to do. So I think there's a lot better athletes out here, and obviously we got owners who are not making an awful lot of mistakes. There's no guarantee that you're going to have a great team, despite how many stars you have. I'll just point you to look at the standings, where the Philadelphia 76ers are in the standings. When the season started, Philadelphia looked to be one of the beasts in the East. And the Sixers have been destroyed by injuries, starting with Paul George and then the entire catastrophic knee fiasco for Joel Embiid. And then they lost Tyrese Maxey. So Philadelphia is not playing basketball. They're out of the playoffs too, much like the mess in Phoenix. There's a byproduct of injury. So the roster you have opening night, as flashy as it might look, might not be the roster you're going to have at the end of the season. You got to be healthy going in. But I think the NBA Western Conference playoffs, John, they're going to be unbelievable.
It's going to be great. And I'll tell you what, Steve Ballmer deserves to have some good, juju going his way.
Okay, let's talk March Madness, Monday night championship game. You got a question here, John?
Yeah, I watched the end of that game. I mean, it was a complete cluster. I mean, what's your take on this, Lee? I mean, was it a choke job?
Nice headline. Choke job, or was Kelvin Sampson outcoached? Fans Forum chat box is open. You're an NBA fan. You can shoot an air ball if you want or hit a 3-point shot. Just tell me what you think. Let's talk about Florida. Walter Clayton is held without a basket for 28 minutes. I mean, the best guard in college basketball. They would not let him breathe. He could not get open. They banged him all over the place. He could not score. And then what he did in about the final 6 minutes of the game was amazing. 11 points, 5 boards, 7 assists. What changed was Florida bigs, who at one point looked so timid, not willing to shoot the basketball. The Florida bigs took over that game in the second half. Florida's big men combined for 20 points and 40 rebounds in that game as they came back to beat the University of Houston. And for Houston, that's a legitimate question. Did those kids choke? Or was Kelvin Sampson just flat out coached? I watched the sideline in the final 16 seconds, the final possession of that game, John. Kelvin Sampson stood there at midcourt with his arms folded. They never called a play to run. They gave the ball to his star guard, L.J. Cryer. He did not make anything happen. He did not push the ball up the floor. He did not try to penetrate and dish. He did not find an opening. They did not run any screens to get him open to take a three. This guy has carried them with big shot after big shot through the course of postseason play. They just did not attack. And Houston unraveled. I mean, Houston owned Florida early. Houston wound up with 19 fouls and 9 turnovers. Houston went 9 possessions in a row with all that talent, got no baskets. There was one stretch, there were 3 turnovers in a minute. Another stretch, their bigs had 4 fouls in 90 seconds in that game that let Florida back in. I don't think Sampson did a good job. Somebody needs to explain to me why Cryer was out deep in that backcourt, almost to midcourt with 16 seconds to go, not initiating something offensively. TV ratings just came out, John, 18.1 million. The world watched it, up 22%. That was pretty impressive. Everybody saw Florida rally to beat Houston. By the way, the women's final, it went from 18.5 million viewership last year to 8.5 million. That's a drop of 53% this year for the NCAA Women's Championship game. So there was a huge drop-off post Caitlin Clark. Men's basketball is back. So, John, what do you think when you saw Kelvin Sampson stand there with his arms folded, do nothing, and watched his guard accomplish nothing at the end?
Yeah, they were discombobulated. They didn't have any sort of a strategy. They couldn't penetrate. And then that shot at the end where it slipped out of his hand and then he couldn't touch it again because it would have been double dribble. I mean, everything was weird about it, but it was a choke job. I mean, the Cougars had like a 12-point lead in the second half and they just let it get away. And this is supposed to be this tough defensive team. You got a lead like that, you got to bring this thing home. I mean, the fans in Houston must be just so disappointed.
It's really interesting. A lot of people obviously were really excited with Houston's guards and how great that defense was and how they forced things. A lot of people don't like Kelvin Sampson. He's got a tacky track record as a coach and kind of as a person. And I've read some of the syndicated basketball columnists nationwide, the opinion he got what he deserved, because a lot of people just don't like what Kelvin Sampson has stood for and represented a couple different places that he's coached. That might be cruel. That might be a cheap shot, might be unfair, but there's a bit of a sentiment there. But I was just shocked because I thought Houston, 16 seconds with Cryer and Sharp and Azu. I mean, they got 3 guards that could all score, and they didn't get the ball to any of them, didn't create anything and force anything. I was just absolutely stunned. So you're a basketball fan. Go ahead, fire a 3-point shot, shoot an air ball with an opinion if you want. Want to hear what you got to say. John, final topic on the table before we get to the Fans Forum chat box. We are talking puck.
Talking puck, but also Trump, Putin, and Bettman.
All right, let's talk about this. We have talked extensively in the last couple of weeks about the great accomplishment of Alexander Ovechkin, bypassing Wayne Gretzky's career goal-scoring record now at 895 goals, how the NHL has wrapped their arms around this great Russian player, future Hall of Famer, etc. Real interesting sidebar story. We have obviously talked about the intersection of sports and politics. Trump phone call 10 days ago with Putin about the war in Ukraine and a bunch of other things. And then Trump was dropping hints of Putin says, hey, we should play a hockey tournament between your hockey stars and our hockey stars. Well, that did not go down good at all. A report out of Montreal yesterday, an alliance of Russian hockey players who play in the NHL, play in the minor leagues, or play in Europe. An alliance of Russian and Ukraine hockey players have asked Commissioner Gary Bettman not to talk to Trump nor accept any form of negotiation with Putin and the Russians to put on any type of international hockey exhibition. At the end of the day, even though we had the great success with the Four Nations tournament, etc., they just don't want Russian players involved in any international play as long as the war with Ukraine is going on. Putin evidently said, let's have Team USA, Team Canada, and Russian players in a tournament. There was also talk about how about just having a USA, Canada all-star team play KHL all-star teams. I don't think this should go forward. Hockey players, the hockey players themselves, who are normally non-political, went public in Montreal and said, no, we do not want Gary Bettman to get involved in any negotiations at all while this war in Ukraine is continuing on. John, reaction?
Yeah, just more normalizing what shouldn't be normal. So this is, and I imagine that Putin is probably thinking, well, I can work a deal with Trump on this, but it's a shame. Because those players are professionals, they're stars, They deserve to play on the highest stage, but all this political nonsense and the war and everything else is screwing them. So the right thing to do is end the damn war and let's get back to normal.
That's where we are. You got an opinion. Now it's your turn. We do sports talk the way it should be done. I want you to join us now. Fans Forum chat box is open with your questions, your comments, your statements. Feel free to side with me, side with John. Want to hear what you've got to say. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego, and the new lumber company up in Dana Point. You got projects, they've got materials. You want ideas, they can help you. They'll be your best friend and your consultant. DIXIELINE Lumber. Just go to the website, DIXIELINE.com. See all the things they have to offer you. John, Fans Forum, out there in left field, what button are you going to hit? What do the fans got to say about you or me or the big topics on the table?
There's some loaded questions in this list, but let's start with Matthew because he always throws us a couple of bucks. We'll go to him first. And he says, what would you trade DeVries or Salas for?
I would not. Why are we trading anybody? That is the future of Padre baseball. The window playing in World Series is about right here. It's going to get smaller because of the age of the pitchers and impending free agents for those pitchers. I'm not trading DeVries nor Salas. They've got 2 really good young left-handed pitchers at Class A right now, like Elsinore, but that's way down the road. But that's the future of Padre baseball. So what they have to win with. I'm not trading anybody. Even if guys go down with injuries, I'm not doing that. The biggest question to me is, you have signed guys to contract extensions, the latest being Jackson Merrill. Can you create something that would make Michael King and Dylan Cease want to forego free agency and stay here because of the atmosphere at Petco Park, the greatness, the fan support, etc.? Can you do that between now and the baseball trade deadline? That, to me, is the next priority for A.J. Preller. It's not trading the kid shortstop at A or, obviously, the catcher at AA. John?
Yeah, I mean, why would you trade those guys? I mean, you've depleted all of the other resources except those 2 crown jewels, and they're in first place. They're 10-3. You don't need to make any desperation moves. So clearly, the other teams are all going to be calling and asking for those guys.
That's where we are. Let's go to the next one.
Let's keep moving. Okay, and here's a shout out from Joel. And he goes, from the armpit of Riverside to the dirty south of Otay Mesa, I want to talk sports with you.
Oh, Joel, don't be critical of where you live and where I work. Come on now. It was interesting because John Riley's always asked me, how did you come up with this? Or why did you say that back in the day on 690 and on 1090? And I said, well, we're always looking for a hook to get people actively involved with what we're doing with the podcast. And I just came up with this idea of linking all these towns together. So when somebody's in a traffic jam on Interstate 15 on their way to the North County, when they heard me yell out from Rancho Penasquitos to Rancho Santa Fe, they'd want to get on and hit their cell phone and get on the air with us. That's where that sales pitch came from. Does that make sense, John?
Poway, Penasquitos, get those lines lit. It's just fantastic. Okay, let's keep going. Matt has another one because he's giving us some money. He goes, hey, say it with me, John. Dodgers fire Mark Prior.
Under what case? I mean, they seem to have a lot of confidence in Mark Prior. Pitching injuries are not his fault. Obviously, John and I have talked extensively about the crisis of velocity versus max effort. Dodgers are not the only ones that have had these problems. It's everywhere in Major League Baseball. I don't see that Prior's to blame for anything. I think the big issue is, can you solve a pitcher's mechanical problems? And that's a huge thing. I think if we're looking at closer to home, we're looking at Ruben Niebla and what they've been able to do to sort out mechanical problems, release points, and all those things that make a pitcher good or get a pitcher in trouble. Prior has his hands full working with Blake Snell. Nobody, not Tampa Bay, not San Diego, and obviously not the Giants, and now not the Dodgers, have been able to work out why Snell has these stretches where he is so out of whack in terms of release point and has to throw 96 pitches in the first 5 innings a game and has to be pulled. Nobody's ever solved that, despite the fact the guy's got great stuff and the guy throws hard and some of his stuff is really wicked, and despite the fact he's had really good ERAs the second half. of a whole pile of seasons. But I don't think that's a prior issue. I think that's a Snell issue. And maybe some guys, they just can't repeat their motion, arm slots and all that. Does that make sense, John?
It does. I think Mark Pryor is probably in one of the best spots of any pitching coach because they've got so many talented pitchers there. So if one guy goes sideways a bit, he can just roll in the next guy. But as far as Blake Snell is concerned, I often wondered if the Tampa Rays, kind of were happy to get rid of him. Because remember, he had that deal where he would only go like 5 innings. He hit his pitch count at 90 or 100. And it was in that World Series game where he got pulled after like 5 1/3 innings, and he was mowing down the Dodgers. But the Tampa Rays organization knew that Snell was never going to be like a 7 or 8 inning stud.
They also knew that they probably, because of economics, are not going to be able to sign guys who are going to stay as free agents. That's why if you track back and look at the number of pitchers that Tampa has traded away, Snell was one. Chris Archer was a red-hot prospect who pitched really well early in his career. There was impending free agency there. They traded him because he physically broke down and is out of baseball now. But Tampa just historically has developed arms, used them as they got closer, not to arbitration, but as they got closer to free agency, they moved those guys out of there. But Snell's a mystery that nobody's been able to harness all that talent, all that firepower, and make him consistent. That's strange.
Yeah, well, it's mental. I mean, it's got to be mental. And Snell's got a lot going on in his head when he's pitching. I mean, I like that in a way as a fan because in the press conferences after the game, he really breaks it down, but it just tells you how much of it's in his head.
Okay, we move on. Thanks for the input, Matt. Next one.
Let's go to Gary. He says, Lee, do you think this is finally the year when the Kings beat the Oilers in the playoffs?
Edmonton's really hurting. They got a lot of banged up guys. Now, they just announced early this morning, and they're finishing the season on a real skid. They've announced that they're going to have Draisaitl back, and they're going to have Connor McDavid back at 100%. They're in the playoffs, but they're going to be on the road in the playoffs. So, yeah, I think this is the year, for the Kings to make their push. Now, the Western Conference is really tough. Everything goes through 53-win Winnipeg right now in the Western Conference. Winnipeg's got to prove. Winnipeg just have to prove that they can win in postseason because that's the best of 7 is a really different animal than playing on a Tuesday night in Minnesota and a Thursday night against the Blackhawks, etc. So Winnipeg's got to prove that they can go more than one series in postseason. But you got Winnipeg, and then you got Dallas, and Dallas is loaded with their star power. A lot of snipers there, and Jake Ottinger is a really good goalkeeper. The Kings are right there in that mix. That's a piece of that equation. Calgary, they've had a really good season. Vegas is really dangerous, although I think their goaltending is a little bit suspect to me. Vancouver, as good as they could be on certain nights, just played themselves out of a playoff spot, and they're done, which they've got to be breaking their hearts because they were the Cinderella team all last season. But I think the Western Conference it's going to be like a war zone. It's going to really, really be hard. I should throw Minnesota Wild in there, and they've had a lot of injuries to their skilled guys. They're getting most of those guys back for postseason play, so the Western Conference will be good. Hey, I want to mention something that happened in the NHL last night. Vancouver is playing, and they are down, and they scored 3 goals in 55 seconds in the final minute of the game. He pulled the goaltender, John, had the extra attacker. They scored 3 straight goals, forced overtime, and then finally won the game in overtime. First time since 1917. That's a lot of hockey games that anybody had scored 3 goals in the final minute of a game and then actually won the game in overtime. But sadly, Vancouver got knocked out of the playoffs. They've been so streaky and so erratic, and they've had contract problems, etc. So, John, that's my update in the hockey hotline. Everything is going through area code 204, Winnipeg, Manitoba, when the playoffs start in a week, and that's going to be fun.
You even know the Canadian area codes. It's funny. The NHL is like the NBA. They're loaded in the West. So I'm fired up for this. I mean, this is must-see TV every year to watch the NBA playoffs. I'm hoping the Kings make a run here. I think that'd be kind of special for California.
They've really built this thing. The Kings, I think, have 44 wins right now, which is equal to what they had last year. But the Kings have added firepower. They obviously have Darcy Kemper, who has just had an amazing bounce back save his career season, maybe save the Kings season. So Kings are going to be tough, but boy, the Western Conference playoffs are going to be tough. But getting home ice advantage for a couple playoff rounds, huge, huge. Because right now at Crypto.com Arena, that place is an insane asylum. Those fans are going crazy. And to win in LA is almost impossible right now if you play in the Kings.
Speaking of insane asylums, let's transition to this. This is a four-parter, okay? They're short and quick. It's Sam the Tool Man, and he says, Lee, you are irrelevant. Trump derangement syndrome. Lee, you are washed up. Get off the air. You are incompetent and fabricate stories.
Sam the Tool Man. What a tool. If those are all the negatives swirling around this podcast, what does it say about you, Sam, watching this podcast and taking time out of your life as your life ticks away to communicate with us? Got no problem. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, even Sam the Tool Man, if he's wrong. That being said, what I would recommend, any Democrats out there who would like to join us in fans forum in the chat box, jump on board, because the only people that are screeching to me are angry followers of the guy they voted for president. Now, there must be people on the other side from the left who jump on fans forum chat box, defend the honor of the greatness. But Sam, glad to entertain you, even if you don't agree. Thanks for following. You're right. I win again.
The vitriol that has been coming out at you for commenting on Trump and the Dodgers story at the White House is something. Here's another one from a Dodger fan, and this is from Freddie. He goes, "Hey, keep that Dodger name out of your mouth before I slap you, old man."
I just love social media. Everybody's so disrespectful all the time. By the way, what was the first thing that came out of my mouth on Monday's podcast when we were talking about Dodgers, White House? First thing came out of my mouth, what an honor for these guys. What a memory of a lifetime for these guys. That's the first thing that came out of my mouth because they deserved this, because they honored it. And a whole bunch of players didn't want to go, and Clayton Kershaw stood up in a team meeting and said, we're representing this team, and we accomplished this honor as a team. Let's go as a team. And they all went. But what was the first thing that came out of my mouth? Dodgers, what an exciting time. They deserve this honor. And yet, I get all this hate from the right-hand side on the chat box. That's kind of interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up here. This is from David. He gave us a couple of bucks too. And he says, hey, Democrat here. We don't cry on the internet, only maggots.
We move on. We had a lot of topics on the table. I'm not wasting my time talking to those people right now. Let's talk to the others.
Okay, so let's go to Gary. We're talking a little bit about what's going on in center field with the Dodgers. He says, Dodgers are waiting on Ha-Seong Kim to be ready to play second base. Then they can play Edman in center field.
Ha-Seong Kim, as of this morning, is hitting .328 Oklahoma City. So he has settled in. Obviously, it's an adjustment to come from Korea. Ball, variety of pitches, pitch clock, strike zone, different bats. The whole preparation, I think, to play Major League Baseball is really different. You're facing unbelievably gifted players on every pitching staff compared to what you might face in the Korean League. But the kid went to Oklahoma City. He's done everything they've asked. He's hitting .328. So I think that's a really good point, Gary. I think he'll be back pretty quickly, and then maybe Edman goes to center and Kim winds up at second base, lickety split. I'm surprised Padres has played so poorly defensively. He's not hitting for average either. He's popped some home runs because that's a hot prospect. And, this is a year and a half, almost 2 years now that he's been at the major league level in some form or fashion. It hasn't quite kicked in with consistency yet. John?
Doesn't it seem that Tommy Edman is playing better for the Dodgers than he did for the Cardinals?
Might it be he's surrounded by a better batting order with the Dodgers than he did with the Cardinals? But no, you're correct. That's a very valid point, especially in power department. He would occasionally pop one in St. Louis. He's hitting home runs every week for the Dodgers. Been very, very impressive.
Yeah, very surprising. Okay, let's go talk a little football here with Freddie. He goes, hey, with Gino's contract extension, do you still see the Raiders even thinking about Sanders?
I guess my bounce back response to you, Fred, would be, what happened if Shedeur Sanders falls? What if he drops to 6? Raider fan, please answer the question, what would you do? That Fans Forum chat box is open. If you had the chance to take Genty the great running back from Boise State, and they are deficient at running back. If you had the chance to take Genty or draft Shedeur Sanders for the future, what would you do? I've been told that Shedeur Sanders' overall checklist doesn't stand out in terms of qualities. Has he played a lot of football? Hell yes. Is he a smart X and O's guy? Yeah, because he's played a lot of football. But he's also played half that schedule at a much lower level, so athletically he can dominate. Does he have a cannon for an arm? Absolutely not. That's a big issue. Has he gotten by on his ability just to kind of move the pocket? Yeah. But in the pros, it's a whole different game. He's taken ungodly numbers of sacks. And that's in college football. What happens if he goes to a bad team? In the NFL, sometimes you don't get up from those sacks. So I was told that he doesn't check off all the boxes to be a, quote, star going in. Now, you can develop some of the things, but I don't know, Raider fan has to answer that question for me. If you had the choice between the Boise running back or the Colorado quarterback, what do you do? I think they'd take Genty. John, what do you think they would do?
I'm interested in this because with Tom Brady involved, are they going to change the philosophy? Because Shedeur would be the shiny object in this case. But I think to Freddie's point, the fact that Geno got that extension, that tells me they're committed to him for the next couple of years. So maybe they're like passing on the quarterback class this year and anticipating a draft next year.
Yeah, I was told, I can't think of the names off the top of my head. I was told there are going to be 5 really good college quarterbacks next year in that draft. So maybe Shedeur goes somewhere else. Maybe he goes to New Orleans as the quarterback for the future because it's Derek Carr's last season. I don't think he falls into the 20s. Pittsburgh needs a quarterback for the future, if not a quarterback today. But I don't think Shedeur Sanders is dropping all the way down to, I think Pittsburgh drafts 21. It's going to be fascinating. But his entitlement has turned some people off. Some of the interviews have turned people off. The fact he didn't work out at his own pro day has turned people off. The fact that he told Tennessee this past weekend, I'm canceling out. I'm not coming in to throw. I got 4 years on tape. Go look at my tape. I'm not sure that every coach, every general manager wants to hear that from a prospective draft pick that you're looking at. So I don't know. There's just a bunch of issues from a personality standpoint, in addition to the fact he doesn't check all the boxes skill-wise, that probably maybe forcing him down the board some. Does that make sense?
It does, but you can imagine that his father is coaching him on how to handle himself in this draft. And I bet you they have a couple of teams in mind where they want to make sure he goes and they want to avoid some others. But tell me about how he didn't go to his, pro day. Is it Shedeur Sanders' pro day or is it the Colorado Buffaloes pro day?
It was Colorado's pro day highlighted by Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. That was the storyline. I mean, there were all the other Buffalo players were there. A couple of their wide receivers. One of their wide receivers, Jimmy Horn, was just tremendously impressive. But so these guys obviously get the chance to meet with all the different scouts. They interview him again, etc. But Shedeur didn't throw. And then Shedeur's public stance, he told Tennessee Titans, you got 4 years of my tape at Jackson State and CU. Just go watch that. That's who I am. So big issue. He's acting very differently than you would expect a guy who would be the leader of a franchise to act. Is because Deion's trying to place him in a certain position? It doesn't matter. Most of these teams are really bad. He's going to go to a bad team regardless of where he's going. So that's where we go. Okay, next question.
Okay, let's go here to the O-Siders. He goes, the Pac-12 is struggling finding an 8th team. When should San Diego State push the panic button? Is it possible that the Mountain West becomes a more desirable contract and gets a bigger TV deal than the Pac-12?
No. First of all, they've already signed documents. You can't opt out of the Pac-12. The belief is that they're going to have to find another team football-wise. But that other team, to me, is not a sexy draw. Memphis makes no sense because of geography and time zones and all that. Central Florida, South Florida, it doesn't make any sense. Tulane, nah. There has been talk about Rice and Southwest Texas State. But nobody in Houston watches Rice football. They're Houston Cougar fans or Texas Longhorn or A&M fans. They're not Rice Owl fans. I just don't know that there's a big hook there. What I think that the Pac-12 leadership should do is go back to the NCAA and say, give us a waiver. Let us start as a 7-team football league. We've already added Gonzaga in basketball. We may add St. Mary's in basketball. And let's see what the next calendar year brings if there's more shuffling of the deck. I still maintain that this is absolutely asinine to have Stanford and Cal in the Atlantic Coast Conference with all that travel, and neither one of those schools is getting a full cut of the TV rights deal from the ACC. And you got all the expenses for your non-football sports that have to travel and go play Wake Forest, etc. That makes no sense at all. Try to lure them back and see if there's an escape clause. If you got Cal and Stanford back, then you have the Bay Market area. You're never going to get the LA market just because there is no UCLA and USC there. But they got to be very, very careful as to where they go. In terms of the Mountain West, the Mountain West TV deal is only $3 million per year per school. I don't think it's going to be much higher than that. The Pac-12, the rumor line that I get from Pac-12 people who are in the know is this TV deal might be at the most $10 million per school. That's not a hell of a lot compared to what they're getting in the Big 12, the SEC, the Big 10, and the ACC, because they won't have any marquee schools. Make sense, John?
Yeah, it's still an upgrade, though, over the Mountain West.
I think so.
Yeah, but do you think there's any possibility that Nevada, Reno, they might have to kind of let them in just so they have 8?
Well, there's talk, but I don't think they carry a lot of clout. And there's great uncertainty about Vegas. Vegas has got leadership problems. The president has resigned. They've gone through coaches. They got financial issues. They had $20 million in debt. People say, oh, the fans will come flock to see a Pac-12 game if Vegas is in it. Well, this is not the Pac-12 that you and I grew up watching. There's no Oregon, there's no Washington, there are no Trojans, there's no Bruins. It's not like these guys are coming into Vegas to play UNLV in a, quote, Pac-12 team. So it's a tough set of circumstances. I would ask for the waiver and just see what a year from now looks like. My fondest wish was I wish BYU was a free agent, because BYU would really be kind of cool in a new look Pac-12, but that's still not a magnet to draw a ton of viewership. Pac-12's they got an issue in terms of membership, just like I think the Mountain West is going to have an issue in terms of membership too. But
even if you got a waiver for a year, it's not like anything's going to significantly change unless by magic Cal and Stanford get out of their contract. I wonder if Sac State could be sort of like a wild card here. They're going independent. Maybe you take a gamble on a place like that.
No, there's no legacy. There's no history. No network's giving you a wad of money because you got Sacramento State.
Well, then there's nothing left.
They may talk a good game. Well, there's nothing left at this hour. Maybe all that changes. Who knows? Again, I go back to my comment that I can't believe Cal and Stanford in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and I think this is really, really good. But Cal and Stanford don't swing the pendulum back the other way, because there's nobody in the Los Angeles market that's going to be playing in this conference. It's just a bad set of circumstances because of the greed of Southern Cal and UCLA and then all the other dominoes, the way they fell. Okay, John, let's move on.
Moving on. Let's go here to Callan. Talk about that national championship game was a nice distraction from hearing that 2,000 men's players and 1,500 women's players are in the transfer portal. Bravo to Gino for calling it out afterwards.
Well, UConn women, that might be, and he's had so many great teams and so many great players have gone through Storrs, Connecticut. That might be the best collection of talent on one team I think I've ever seen in women's basketball. He did a phenomenal job. And in terms of the men's tournament game, I could not believe that Florida got choked to death in the first half, and then Houston was the one that choked at the end of the game. And by the way, as of Friday, the total in the first week of the transfer portal was 2,057 players, which to me it's just abominable. And if that's not enough, did you know today at 8:00 this morning, the transfer portal, the spring transfer portal in college football opened? Think about that.
Another couple of thousand players probably entering that as well.
Yeah, so that's where we are in college athletics. It's just totally upside down.
Well, Callan has a quick follow-up here. I want to get this one in. He goes, I'd love to hear a hacksaw-style rant about the Suns like he did in his first night on KTAR.
Well, at the end of the day, with the Suns, you have a new owner that came in and promised everything, and Matt Ishbia, very successful businessman, and they're out of the playoffs. Did not make the playoffs again. Have lost 8 games in a row. And no, he was going to spend all this money, highest payroll in the NBA, he was going to make all these trades. They are capped out till the next lifetime. And they got contracts, and they got 37-year-old Kevin Durant. They got a Devin Booker who's very unhappy. They got injury-prone Brad Beal. They traded away a lot of the young picks. They don't have high draft picks in the future. This is not a good set of circumstances in Phoenix. And I think as we sit here in April, I think Durant is going to be traded. But Kevin Durant is age 37 now. That's not the Kevin Durant of the past. And I don't know what you're going to get back. I don't think you're going to get 3 number 1 draft picks for a 37-year-old guy. So the Suns, as an organization, have set. They got a real problem. The owner promised things, could not deliver. And now look at what he's got on his hands, a non-playoff, aging basketball team with no picks in the future really to use to fix this thing. It's not a good look. Phoenix has got some real problems.
Well, your analysis of the Suns is on target, but the best part of this question, it was your first night at KTAR. You told me how you caused a dust storm, out in Phoenix when you landed there. Tell that story again. Just
real simply, I got there. Phoenix was a developing market. It had Arizona State football, which was king. It had the Phoenix Suns, which was a great run organization by then Jerry Colangelo. And they really had nothing else. There was no NFL. There was no Major League Baseball at that point in time. So I just tried to theorize as I was driving cross country to Phoenix how I was going to approach doing sports talk radio. Well, just as I got there, the NCAA put Arizona State on probation for 3 years for cheating. Big scandal involving Coach Frank Kush. Just as I got there, the Suns, who had a really good franchise, top seed in the West, got knocked out in the first round, had home court advantage, and got knocked out in the first round. And just as I got there, baseball went out on strike. This was 1981, I believe it was. Baseball struck. So I go on the air the first night, and I do my opening spiel. From KTAR in Phoenix, sports giant of the Southwest. We welcome you to the 620 Sports Line. And I introduced myself. I said, here are the topics on the table that we're going to talk about tonight. And I said, please explain to me how Arizona State, with all this money and the Sun Angel Foundation and the beautiful campus and those pretty women and drawing 72,000 fans, why do you have to cheat? Why do you cheat in football, Arizona State? I did that. And I said, please explain to me for the Phoenix Suns, how the hell you could be number 1 in the entire Western Conference with Alvin Adams and Walter Davis and all these great players and get knocked out in the first round when you had home court advantage for the entire playoffs? How's that possible? Suns fans, what do you think of your team now? And then how the hell in baseball could you go out on strike? And the phones lit up like a Christmas tree. And that set the tempo of who I was and what I was going to do. Because up until that point in time, John, sports talk radio was nice. Mom and pop radio. Everything was beautiful. Well, everything was not beautiful. Sun Devils were on probation and in jail forever. And it was catastrophic to the football program. And then obviously the Suns just never won that championship they had tried so hard to win. So, yeah, I pushed a few hot buttons that first night on KTAR. And here we are, years and years later, still doing it. I love the story. I think it's great, just rolling into town and just blowing everybody up. But were you known as Hacksaw back then? Yes. You were? Yeah, they gave me that nickname when I actually worked in Cleveland. And I came to Phoenix, and first night on the air, as the phones were going crazy. Of course, Phoenix was a melting pot of people from all over, and people jumped on board. First thing out of their mouth, Hacksaw, welcome to the Valley of the Sun. So the name stuck with me, and then it followed me in the moving van and the wife and the kids from Phoenix to San Diego, where I became the voice of the Chargers. So, yeah, that's who I am. That's what I do. All good. Okay, let's keep going here. Go to Carlos, talk about the Padres, and says, hey, great to see you guys. Left field for the Padres is a question. What young player can step up in left field? It's a good question. But as long as they're getting productivity from whatever committee they've got, I think you just stay with it and just ride it and just see what happens. Gavin Sheets is hitting right now. He did not hit with any consistency while with the White Sox, but he's got the added ability to pop. We'll see if the kid who used to be with the Yankees and Indians, Gonzalez, if Oscar Gonzalez can hit consistently at the major league level. He's hit everywhere in the minor leagues, and he's got power. He's going to get a chance now to be part of this platoon, at least going forward. And Eggy Rosario has been moved to the outfield at AAA El Paso. Nobody claimed him on waivers, so the Padres still have him. And if these other guys don't pan out, maybe Eggy, who's had some spurts where he's hit major league pitching, other spurts that he's not, but he's got some pop. Maybe they give him a kick at the can there. So it's committee in left field for the time being right now.
Yeah, it's interesting, because watching the game, over the weekend, Lockridge had his moments. Granted, he was playing center field because Merrill wasn't there, but Lockridge is still more of a fourth outfielder. And, Oscar Gonzalez got a chance to play, and he hit 2 hits, I think, in his first game. They were really hard hit balls. So I just think Jason Hayward, man, I watch him play. I just think, the time has passed him up. I think they're going to have to move on from him, and there's no way Gurriel is going to play in left field.
No, not at all. The only thing with Hayward is there's some leadership qualities there that don't show up on a stat sheet. The other thing is, has he lost his bat speed? And those coaches and those guys gauge all those statistics, those analytics. And if they come to the conclusion in a couple of weeks that he's lost his bat speed, and if he's hitting 180, then probably he doesn't stay with this team for an extended period. But if he does start to hit, and he did hit in stretches with the Dodgers, did hit in stretches to the tail end with the Astros, so maybe you keep him. But at least they got numbers of guys who've been productive at times other places, so they'll go from there. John, let's do a couple social media here before we put the lid on this.
Okay, let's get these guys involved here as well. And who do we got here first? Let's talk here a little bit about the NFL. And this goes first to Wad A. That's who his name is. And he says, hey, if they move to an 18-game season, they need to have 2 bye weeks per team. Player safety is a joke. I'd rather than play 14 games and let defenses rock players again.
Understand it's all about the money. That's what the owners care about. Negotiations, if they do come to the table, the league will throw a lot more money on the table because an 18-game schedule means they will have to share much more revenue with the Players Association. A lot of fans don't understand that the TV contracts and all that are based on a big dollar check. Well, that dollar check is split like 51-49 in favor of the players. So if they go 18-game schedule, it means that they're reworking of all the TV contracts, so it means more revenue comes in the front door and a bigger percentage of that money goes to the players. They will include 2 bye weeks during the course of the season. I think the union, if they're going to accept an 18-game schedule, they're going to ask for bigger rosters. We're going to go from 58 to 63 or maybe 68 full salaried players because the injury factor in the league is so severe. And is it unfair to the players? Yeah. Players, though, do like the payday. Yeah. The concern is your off season gets shorter and shorter, especially for the guys that are having surgery. There's less recovery time, less rehab time. So this is a long drawn out thing. The bulk of the people that I kind of network with are of the opinion in 2027 we're going to have an 18-game schedule. Now they may do away with a lot of the OTAs, and they're definitely going to cut another preseason game out. But 18 games wear and tear, that's pretty significant stuff. John?
Yeah, 17 is an odd number. So you finish the season 9-8 or 8-9, that just bothers me. But when you go back, like I remember like when O.J. Simpson broke the record for 2,000 yards in a season, wasn't that a 12-game season in the NFL, like around 1970?
Yeah, 12 or 14. I think it was 12.
Yeah, so look how far. This is like a 50% increase.
Yeah, different era. And there's so many more dollars on the table now that are all byproduct of the big business of what the National Football League has become. And like anything else, the union may stand up and yell, no. We're not going to have a conversation about that. But at the end of the day, it's always about the dollars and what the league is going to provide the players in terms of freedom, more pay, different set of working conditions, et cetera. Everything is negotiable because there's a dollar sign attached to everything that is negotiated. Okay, next one.
Next one. We'll have the little Dodgers here with Eric. And he says, anytime the Dodgers are booed, America wins.
The evil empire. Dodgers got booed in that last road trip. That's the way it's going to be. They haven't done anything wrong. They're just conducting business very differently, and they're in the number 2 market in the country, and they've creatively financed contracts that players are willing to deal with. And now we're seeing more and more contracts that either have deferred money or back-end loaded, et cetera. So it's just a new method of doing business. The union agreed to this. But having Yankee Dodgers postseason, that's really good for baseball in the big picture of the economy. Having the Padres Red Sox in a World Series would be good for our markets. I don't know, it'd be good for all of baseball in terms of the Fall Classic and TV ratings, et cetera. But the big market franchises with their their legacy carry an awful lot of clout.
It's interesting is just watching sports, particularly baseball as a kid, you get caught up in the rivalries. And back then, of course, players were stuck with one team most of their career. But it's just interesting how the game has evolved. And now players like Manny Machado they talk about being professionals. And so they take all the booing sort of in stride. It's almost like they're a WWE character out there, that they know they're going to get the booing, but it's all part of the showmanship of the sport. What do you think about that?
I think the imagery has changed. Players have a lot more personality. The way the game is packaged, the telecasts have made a big difference in the way the game is now seen. Awful lot of noise out there too, but as long as the fans are fair to players, that you have a right to cheer, you have a right to boo. You don't have a right to say rude and crude things to players. Players don't have a right to go into the stands after the fans either. So, but it's electric. You can't put a dollar figure on the emotion of what it's like to be at Petco Park now to see a home game. That is so cool. And again, I came out of an NFL environment, which was those playoff games were just amazing to be part of and to watch and to broadcast. That's what Padre baseball at home at Petco Park has been. And obviously that's where it is in, some of the other great places that have great history of fan support, be it Wrigley Field, Chicago, Fenway Park, Boston, Yankees, Mets when they're winning, etc. So it's cool. It is a different aura though. That's a real valid point. Okay, next one.
Okay, let's talk about the Chargers here. And this is from Mark, and he says, I would like to see your mock draft, probably a more realistic model of what will go down. As far as Becton and Alt on the right side, they should call them the Grill Brothers, as they will be pancaking defenders.
The Mountain Men, that's what Harbaugh called them. That's actually what I call them. We'll talk more about the draft in the next couple of weeks. We will do a draft preview of what's hot, what's not, etc. This is the most unique draft we've had in a while, John. Everybody owns their first round pick in the draft this year. None of the picks have been traded. Now, it does not mean that something cannot happen in the days leading up to the draft where there may be some flip-flopping. But this is the first time in a long time that I can remember everybody owns their first selection. It's a really good draft. It's a really deep draft. Maybe not at the quarterback position, but it's a really good draft. The linemen, both offensively and defensively, it's got a lot of skill. Not a great draft in terms of running backs. There are some real good athletes in the secondary. So it'll be fun. We'll do a lot more about that when I get back home in the next week or so. Hey, John, listen, this has been great. I appreciate everybody being with us. Long distance, we dodged a bullet. We pulled this off. Sometimes broadcasting from Appalachia, where I am, is a bit of a challenge. So, hey, our podcast mascot sniffer and my co-host from left field, John Riley, did a good job keeping this podcast on the air, because sometimes you're in Appalachia, the lights go out and it doesn't always work. But we've had a lot of fun. This podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects, they got materials. You want ideas, they can be your best friend and your consultant. Just check DIXIELINE.com, all the things they have to offer. John, watch the chase for the green jacket. The Masters is underway. It's got 3 more days of really interesting golf. And obviously we got baseball and basketball and football and hockey, and the playoffs are just around the corner too. Yay.
Hey, Lee, before we break, can you comment a little bit on your visit with Bobby Ross?
Yeah, real briefly. Bobby lives here in Virginia. He is retired, legendary Chargers coach, former Detroit Lions coach at Georgia Tech when they won a national championship. Bobby is 88 years of age. I went to Charlottesville, Virginia to visit with him and his brother Donnie. Bobby and I have had a long relationship going back to when he was the Chargers head coach. And of course, we reviled and talked and told some stories and told some lies and brought up a ton of old names. Bobby's fought through some health problems, but boy, he's sharp as a tack. He's in a retirement community. He and his wife, Alice, moved in late last year. And he's in 7th heaven. Sometimes when you go to a retirement community, it's obviously an adjustment, change of life. Bobby's in a retirement community with 2 coaches, former college head coaches that he's become friends with. One is 89, the other is 90. They spend 2 hours every Monday talking about college games they watch or the NFL games. And then they meet on Friday and talk about the next weekend's games. It's really cool. He didn't even know these gentlemen were there, and he met them when he got there. So, he's tough as old leather shoe boot. He's a great gentleman, great person, and he's just been fun to be around. So that's why I try to hook up with him most every spring when I come back here to Virginia and West Virginia.
That's so awesome that you're still connected with him. I mean, what a great relationship for decades.
Yeah, very much so. John, have yourself a great sports weekend. We'll be back in studio on Monday with the guy from left field and with our podcast mascot, too. Thanks for being with us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.